What is up, everybody? It's Chris from Punch Forge. I had a request on Facebook to do a demonstration for the Pepetools Octagonal ring mandrel. So basically that's what I'm going to do today. I've got a piece of silver half round here that I'm going to end up making into like octagonal ring. I'm going to first get on camera me kind of cleaning up each of these edges. I've pulled this together to be, or cut this to be about a size 12 ring. The wire that I'm using doesn't really matter what it is, what gauge, but this stuff is 16. So it doesn't really matter. You can still form it around a mandrel. I'm using 16. I'm going to make a size 12 ring. And the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and clean up this edge and clean up this edge so that when I bend it around to have them soldered, they'll be nice and clean solder joint. And I'll include you guys with soldering. We'll make a little project video out of this and call it fun. So if you haven't already, down here somewhere in the bottom, I can't remember which side it's going to be on, but there's a little red button that says subscribe. If you want to hit that, little bell notification, let people know when I make a new video. And then also, if you haven't already checked out lionpunchforge.com, do it. It's amazing. I got fun tools, I got jewelry, and then on metalsmithmafia.com or lpfswag.com you can get Lion Punch Forge hats, shirts, all sorts of fun stuff. So take a look at it and let's get started with this project. Alright, since I have my wire cut and these ends are from a flush cutter, which, believe it or not, doesn't actually cut completely flush, I need to clean up my ends before I solder. So I have a little miter jig here. I'm going to put my wire through. I'm going to align it right next to where I have a square peg. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on that to show you. So your wire is going to go right next to that and it's going to tighten down. So I'm going to tighten this down slightly so that I can readjust. And what it's going to look like is you're just going to have a slight bit of stick up. And then I'm going to take my file flatten that out. I want to make sure that I have nice uniform. I'll zoom out for you guys. Alright, so I have a uniform edge now. I'm going to turn it around and do the same thing with the other side. Now you can do this on the side of a bench block. You don't have to use a miter block. You can get good at it and use it for use just your hand and your eye. For this particular video, I'm doing this to show how this tool works. So I'm going to make sure I'm nice and even. And I like to file towards the groove so that the piece that I'm filing has something to push against. I may not have done that on the other one, but I'll go at a couple different angles to make sure I get a nice cleanup. And then I'll look, and right here, I don't know if you can see the glint or not, but it doesn't appear that I have had this deep enough. And I didn't get that completely filed flat. So I'm going to move it up just a tiny smidge and tighten that back down. Same thing. And now I have a nice clean edge. So what I'm going to do now that I'm nice cleaned up, I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to just bend him around until I get like a U shape. Like this is going to allow me to start pushing these edges together so I can create a nice joint. This will be changed on the mandrel afterwards, but I want to make sure that this is pushed together exactly as it should be. So I may need to grab some pliers here to kind of help me with that, persuade it into place. But alright, I have a pair of pliers. that joint there, these are just soft jaws. I've pushed that joint together, and then once it's together, I'm gonna push it down a little bit more. I may need to adjust that, put my edges close together, make sure I'm there. Once I have that joint, as you can see with this one, it's not necessarily perfect. There you go. So what I'm going to do to make that perfect is I'm going to take a saw, and I'm going to just take a saw cut right down the middle of that as soon as I get it close to aligned as possible. So we'll go ahead and work with that a little bit, and then run a saw through it. And a lot of the time I will bend it past and then let it spring back into place. That'll kind of show me where my problem is. That joint is very, very close to being good, but just to make it better, I'm going to run a saw through it. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, I have got my Haymaker, my personal one, with my nice claw foot handle on there. By the way, these things are coming out ready to be shipped probably next week. Get yours. This is not the factory handle on it, but this is one that I made, my prototype. So feel free, take a look at yours. I have a 1/0 blade on here, and for those of you who don't know, usually you want 2 to 3 teeth engaged with the metal while you're sawing, and if it catches up, because you probably either have too much or not enough teeth engaged. Alright, so now that I have that saw cut through there, I'm going to look at that joint again, and it's so much more pretty. Almost flawless already. So I'm going to head over to the solder station. I'll take you guys with me, and we will go ahead and use the Lion's Claw Gold solder tool to hold this down. Sorry, I wanted to do it one more time. And let's go. Alright, we are set up with the Lion Claw Gold. I have on there a straight tip, and I've got the ring pressed against the bottom of my block, and I'm about ready to flux and solder. And I think I'm going to use hard solder for this. I have some little pallions that I'll use. First thing I'm going to do though is add just a tiny bit of flux to it. Right there at my joint. Grab a couple solder pallions. That ought to be good. Put my lids back on, because the worst thing that could possibly happen is having your solder spill all over the place, or your flux spill all over the place. So I'm going to take my Smith torch here. This is the Silversmith. Nice little tip. And I'm going to go ahead and start heating up that flux so that it bubbles, dries out, and then I'm going to bring the rest of it up to temperature. If I can find my striker. Found it. Alright, now that I have my ring a little bit more rounded here, I'm going to start forming on the mandrel. So I'm going to pull this down onto it, and then I'm just going to start giving little taps. Turn it around, do the same thing. Now I'm going to do the same thing, only I'm going to pay attention to where I slide it onto. Because this is tapered, I want to make sure that I even out everything. Do it again, move it around. Take a little softer. So this one's rawhide, this one's leather. Not necessary, I just like doing it. And then now I have an octagonal band ring. Let's see, I have my Fordham. Let's zoom out for you guys. Wrong way. Let's take this guy out. Drills. I'm going to grab a split mandrel, a large one preferably, if I can find it. There it is. So I have a large split mandrel. That'll allow me to stick some paper inside of that. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'll open this up. A little wire. Okay. And let me grab some sandpaper. Okay, so I have my ring, I have a split mandrel. I've got some 600 grit sandpaper in there. And I'm just gonna go over the inside of it. Go on the outside of it. Starting to get there. Let's go inside now. Okay, that's a little bit more cleaned up. What I'm going to do to finish that up more is take some Kratex wheels or some rubberized abrasive and work on that inside with maybe a medium wheel like this guy here. Just go ahead and take mandrel off. Now remember that piece of sandpaper that I just used? That's going to go in my refinery bucket, because that now has little particles of silver on it and it can be refined. If you need any refining done, PMRS, Precious Metal Refining Services, is my favorite because they take carpet, they take sandpaper, they take everything. Let's grab a ring holder because this is getting hot. Looks pretty flat, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bench block, look at it, it's not completely flat, so I'll take another bench block with a polished surface, put that on top, and I can press on it or I can just give it a whack. And if I flip it, should be able to even that out pretty nicely. There you go. Let's put that back on the mandrel one more time just to make sure we're nice and good. I'm going to take my soft mallet, just kind of make sure everything is as it should. I got nice clean lines. Flip it. Make sure I get myself aligned. Alright, now off camera I'm going to go ahead and polish this up and I will show you some pictures.